Yes, this is an hourglass. This is a sphere. And this is a diamond.
Real?
Gee, if it was real, then it would not be sitting here. अभी तक दुनिया में है, जन्नत ऐसे नहीं है इंशाअल्लाह. बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम. अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. جزا الله عنا نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم بما هو أهله. أما بعد, I do want to share the following preface. I want to preface with saying that I was sharing with my dear friend, and he's not going to like me calling him, him being my elder, mashallah. But me being here before you, sitting in this chair, is going to sound weird. This is a spare tire situation. And here's why. On the flyer, it was Sheikh Ammar Shaheen, Imam from Davis. And obviously I'm not Sheikh Ammar Shaheen, I'm Yasir. Make dua for Sheikh Ammar. His health did not allow for him to be here with us this evening. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him a speedy recovery. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of his khidmat, all of the efforts that he does in the community. Throughout, mashallah, the country, he travels and mashallah is spreading the noor of Islam and Iman. May Allah increase, accept, and make it a means of his and his entire family's salvation. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. So with that said, the topic that I am going to attempt, inshallah ta'ala, to speak upon, and I will also digress for a few more seconds and request everyone to make dua for this sinful existence sitting in this chair, that awalan, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless me with the necessary sincerity to even sit here lillah. Everyone say Ameen ya Rabb. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow me to fulfill the right of even sitting here talking about the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. As they say in Urdu, chota muh badi baat. Chota muh badi baat. So, we as human beings, whether we are a student, whether we are a business owner, doesn't matter who we are sitting here today, all of us are, in hindsight, are striving to develop value within ourselves. Okay? In context of Islam, as Muslims, we understand in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. That individual that has fear regarding being presented to Allah, you and I will be presented to Allah on the Day of Judgment. Every single one of us will be presented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment. That is the moment you and I are striving for as Muslims, as believers, since the moment we realize what's going on. Jab se humne hosh sambhali hai, from the moment it clicked, what am I doing here? And what is the trajectory of my life? What am I supposed to do? We have that deep understanding and realization. And as believers, we are constantly striving to become valuable عند Allah. But there are two methods, if you may. There are two ways a person becomes valuable. Number one, and this is, you may say, the dunyawi or the worldly perspective of becoming valuable. And that is, for the sake of time, to oversimplify, that is to create value within oneself through worldly possessions. And that is a deception. Again, to create value within ourselves, or this perception that I am becoming valuable, I am becoming someone who is notable through our worldly possessions. And the problem with that is that Arabic couplet that we studied from the beginning days of Darul Ulum, right? Like these were couplets that you would just recite back and forth between classes. رَأَيْتُ النَّاسَ قَدْ مَالُوا إِلَى مَنْ عِنْدَهُ مَالُ. The poet says, I've seen people gravitate towards people that have mal. People gravitate towards people that have money and worldly possessions in this dunya. وَمَنْ لَا عِنْدَهُ مَالُ فَعَنْهُ النَّاسَ قَدْ مَالُوا. And I have also seen, the poet says, people, perhaps the same people that no longer possess that materialistic intrinsic thing, people move away from that person. Society values others relative to materialism and what this person possesses. Whether it's politics, it's wealth, it's connections, whatever it may be. But as believers, what makes us valuable is not through our materialism or our jaydad or anything else. A mu'mina develops value through developing value within oneself. The topic, the value or the importance of living the life of the sunnah, living the life according to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We understand where society was prior to the Nabuwah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In fact, people of that part of the world, of Hijaz and the Middle East, were not even considered human beings by other civilizations, and we all know that. But just 23 years of prophethood raised such a people from below the threshold, where they were not even considered human beings, raised from like underwater, right? And raised them to literally be the leaders of the world in just 23 years. And we know every prophet had a relative mu'jiza, a miracle relative to the time. Okay? But for the sake of time, that one of the miracles, there were many, one of the miracles of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he had, and if you may, the secret sauce, you like that? The secret sauce of the success of the prophethood of merely 23 years, which transformed the people to become leaders for others to follow until Yawm al-Qiyamah. Not only that, it is part of our aqidah. It is part of our belief system to have love for the Sahaba. It's literally part of our creed. And it's a problem. May Allah give you from the hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the day of judgment, from Hawd al-Kawthar inshallah ta'ala. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. And Qari sahab, when you get some, mujhe bhi ek ghund de dena wahan pe. Hamara kya hoga, honestly, it's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. What guarantee is it, to digress, what guarantee, honestly, to digress, but it's within this topic. Personally, I'm terrified of the moment regarding a hadith that we find that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to paraphrase, will be extending the goblet of Hawd al-Kawthar to someone. And an angel will tap on the shoulder of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and say, you don't know what this person has done with their deen. Wallahi al-azim, I'm terrified at that moment. So that's why I said on the lighter note, mujhe bhi ek ghun de dena wahan pe. We develop value as Muslims through creating value within ourselves. And one of the miracles of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that allowed him to transform Arabia was his akhlaq. See, this is where this comes in. Even a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, I would argue that an infant who doesn't even comprehend the value of money, you place literally this piece of glass, it's not real diamond of course, you place this on one hand, and you place a stack of $100 in one hand. This toddler is going to reach for something like this. It is, you may say, within human nature to be attracted towards something which is glittery and glamorous and looks beautiful. See, all of us want to become valuable in Allah. All of us want to become like diamonds. All of us want to become valuable. And value is not, for argument's sake, not what this diamond owns. This value of this is found within itself. And each of these cuts on this piece of glass was a dramatic process that allowed this to become valuable. And every time we unlearn a bad habit, in other words, every time we replace a bad habit with a good one, it is going to be a dramatic process. It's going to hurt. Its growth is always uncomfortable. Remember that. If you want to grow, it is going to be uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, if we want to be presented to Allah as something to be even considered to be existence, it is going to be done through our character. Now, if I were to turn this light on and shine this light through this piece of, this for argument's sake, call this diamond, it's going to reflect in different manners. The ceiling and the ground and all of that. That nur, that light is the light of Islam and Iman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this heart. And when the nur and the light of Allah is found within a believer, and it shines through this person's beautiful character, it shines in a beautiful manner. This is why it is not necessary to say something to get the message across. In other words, actions speak louder than words. You and I know people. You and I know people that we may have a challenge because of a language barrier. Some ammu or someone in the family or in your local masjid or someone that you are not able to communicate with through a language barrier because of that. But you are touched by this person's beautiful character. Not everything has to be said. If we want to become valuable, and we also want to become diamonds, and we're putting in effort day and night, Wallahi al-azim, it's not through materialism and all of that baloney. It's through working on oneself. It's through replacing evil habits or diseases that we have of the heart. Replace them with khair and goodness. Let it be. See, before I move on to the next one, we all agree, okay? We all agree that in today's day and age, the world could use a little bit more kindness. This world could use, or in other words, society can use a little bit more forgiveness, a little bit more consideration, a little bit more softness. This is perhaps one takeaway that we can, inshallah ta'ala, go back to our homes with, is that if nothing else, from my talk, if nothing else, let us be like Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. How? That whenever anyone approached him with harshness and bitterness, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he would respond with so much more softness and forgiveness, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We know of that narration when an individual held onto the upper garment of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with such harshness and such strength and with such, so dramatically that other Sahaba narrating those narrations explain that we found the markings on the neck on the blessed neck of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And you could only imagine Umar radiyallahu ta'ala on a lighter note, you say and it's done. If you know, you know. Umar radiyallahu anhu, from his perspective, Ya zalim, O oppressor, how do you have the audacity to even approach Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in this manner, let alone disrespect him in such a manner? But no, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to paraphrase, put your sword back in its sheath, it's okay. Character. The ultimate diffuser. Good character is the ultimate de-escalator. Right? In business, in customer service, you gotta smile even if you don't want to. That's just the way it is. The same light and the same nur of Iman. If you look at the verse, Allahu nuru samawati wal ard, mathalu nurihi kamishkatin fiha misbah fi zujaja. If you delve into the tafsir of this ayah, it's absolutely mind-boggling. What is being depicted in that ayah? What is the mishkat? What is the taq? What is the niche in the wall? It's referring to a human being. When we're standing, the place of our hearts is that niche, and that mishkat or that misbah is that source of nur, and that source of nur is the heart, and that heart has that nur, the iman of Allah. Ajib ayah of the Quran, ajib. That same nur of Iman shown through good character reflects in ways that a person cannot even imagine. You can't count in how many places would each of these little reflections hit the table. You can't. Good character touches people. It makes people's day. The same nur and the same iman, the same light of iman, when shown, when it's reflected through here, what does this depict? See, this is a clear sphere, right? I know it looks fancy. It's not as fancy as that, but I have to admit, it's the ajib thing about this is that as I'm like doing this with it, there's no corners to it. It's smooth. It's clear, right? When we live our lives according to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and just as light is going to reflect through the sphere with clarity and beautifully, our hearts will also have clarity and smoothness and contentment. See, this is a sphere. It's not a dramatic shape. You could do this. I can't do this with this, right? This part is poking my hand. Oh, where are you going? Right? This, I can't do that with this. But with this, it's smooth, right? When we live our lives according to the sunnah, see, one of the beautiful things about the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is when we live it, we don't even realize that we're constantly in the worship of Allah. Ajib. In a subtle manner, we're constantly worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the aqli daleel, if you may, right? For those of us that appreciate like aqli daleel, etc., is, let's use some good old mantiq, right? Sughra kubra natija. Okay. Why would a person follow the sunnah? Lillah. Hence, a person following the sunnah is doing it for the sake of Allah. Hence, the natija is, it's ibadah. Every moment of time which is spent intentionally living according to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a form of remembrance of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in the Quran. I'm going to share a verse which perhaps you may have not looked at this verse from the same vantage point before. أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. Remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, listen, pay attention. It is through the remembrance of Allah. It is through the remembrance of Allah that hearts find contentment. It is not limited to literally doing Allah, Allah, and istighfar. It's mutlaq. It's general. There's no quyud. There's no stipulation. Any form of remembrance of Allah is going to bring contentment. Hence, every moment we spend in following the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that innately, directly, indirectly, in every way, is going to bring contentment to our hearts. We look for contentment in everything else. To go back one step, people look for contentment in materialism. People look for contentment in like hubbijah, like in leadership and wealth and politics and all of this worldly deception. Wallahi, it's a deception. Ask me, being a chaplain in a state capital for 4 years, wallahi, it's a deception. It's fake. It's people think they're in control. People think, oh, I'm going to pass 2,000 laws in a year. It's deception. Fake. True honor, respect, contentment is found only through the remembrance of Allah and by living the life according to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wallahi, 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 there's contentment. There's no need to look anywhere else. You hold the sunnah of our Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam not close to your heart, in your heart. You follow the sunnah out of love for Allah, out of love for our Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you do it for the sake of Allah. It doesn't matter what people say. It's between you and your Allah. You're doing it and you find that contentment. What happens? You develop clarity in your own life. Now imagine I had a Sharpie. Imagine I had a Sharpie, like a green one, and I like painted, or like I marked this part green, and I marked this part red, and I marked this part purple or black. This is all like worldly filth and dhulm like placing things in the wrong places. So of course, when light is, like if a flashlight is held, then it will include the color tones that is painted upon this. But why do people do that? Lack of knowledge. People, al-a'yadhu billah, I believe is a part of weakness in aqidah or lack of knowledge, that al-a'yadhu billah, right? They believe, or some people believe that, oh, I have to do this to fulfill. No, wallahi, we only need the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The sunnah is kafi. The sunnah is sufficient. The sunnah is beautiful. The sunnah is all we need to tie to the practical aspect of, okay, Yasir, we have to remind ourselves, and this is why I'm going to reflect upon our dear Imam and Sheikh's points regarding learning about the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Believe it or not, every solution of every problem is found in the sunnah and the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's there. The problem is we don't know. We can't see it. And that is why we need to sit at the feet of our ulama and learn to share something as a student of deen. He said 10 minutes. Yes, as a student of deen. This is, as a student of deen, I'm telling you a personal experience. Okay? As a brother. Okay? When you come across a situation in your life and you have enough of a grip or a grasp on the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm not going to take an oath in Allah, but I'm just sharing my personal experience, like practical. Right? I'm not here giving fancy lectures. I know these are weird props. Like, it's ajib, ajib bars. Who shows up with this stuff? But, nevertheless. What was I saying again? I distracted myself.
Personal life experience.
Personal experience. When you have even a little bit of knowledge regarding the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you find yourself at an intersection in life, and you don't know what to do, subhanallah, you are reminded of a specific incident in the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you say to yourself, or you ask yourself, what would my Habib do in this situation? That ilm of that seerah, or that ilm, that knowledge, that enlightenment of that specific situation, you objectively, honestly, you're not twisting and turning things here. You're being sincere to Allah. You're standing there at that intersection and you ask yourself, what do I do? You are reminded of a similar situation in the life of our Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that in this incident, this took place. And this is what my Habib did. And that is what you do, saying, Allahumma khirli wa khtarli. You rely upon Allah. Sometimes you make wudu, pray 2 rakats of salah. Sometimes you have to jump in, you don't have the time. But you are guided through the seerah and the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is a practical way that how learning about the seerah is going to help us navigate our daily lives. Given it is with sincerity. One of my teachers told us in class, beautiful concept to digress, but it supports this topic. When he was teaching us Quran tarjama, he was teaching us Quran translation, word for word, Quran translation. He told us a beautiful principle. He said, in order for you to benefit from the Quran, you have to approach the Quran with an open heart, open mind, without preconceived notions. You have to approach the Quran, you have to approach the deen of Allah objectively, honest to Allah. Not approaching the Quran or the Deen, for example, with a preconceived objective. As Muftiyani Karam would explain, fatwa shopping. I'm not a mufti, right? Some people call me mufti, I don't know why. I didn't even attend 1 day of ifta, Darul Ifta, by the way. You know, maybe people get confused like other, like mufti or whatever. Mufti could be named. I say it, right? The muftis will tell you the concept of there are people, with all due respect, due to lack of sincerity, they have a preconceived notion and they fatwa shop until mufti to mufti and mufti to mufti until they find the answer they want. That's not Islam. That's nafs parasti. That's following our desires. In a similar manner, if I may stretch this, the seerah, the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when we're standing there with that ilm and that knowledge, to do so lillah, not doing so with the preconceived notion कि भाई मुझे तो ऐसा करना है तो मुझे अपने लिए कोई justification चाहिए, हाँ मुझे माँ बरा करना है, बरा बंदा ना करे ना, बंदा देखे कि भाई दीन क्या है, what does Allah say, what is the hukm of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ala al-ra's wal-ayn bas. Wallahi, the contentment, the peace, the clarity that one will find in following the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wallahi, there is no other form of, there's no other, how should I put this? There's nothing else in this dunya that will give you the maza, that will give you the same type of, like, to use nasha in this context. And I'm intentionally doing this because unfortunately people have hijacked Allama Rumi rahimahullah and using, like, by the way, to digress, the love and the sharab and all of those references in Allama Rumi rahimahullah's poetry is regarding Allah, is regarding the deen. It's not about these foolish things that people are writing these days. Ajib. Muhabbat, love, sharab, and all of these things, saki, and all of, like in the poetic realm, it's referring to the love of Allah. जब अल्लाह की मोहब्बत का मजा जब आदमी चख लेता है तो फिर इंसान उस पे दीवाना हो जाता है. And I'm sitting here as if I figured it out. I'm not. ये हमने बड़ों से बातें सुनी है. Like I'm again तालिबुल इल्म, ये गुनाहगार ने पर्दा डाला हुआ है. हमने बड़ों से सुना है कि once you develop that dhawq and you taste what it's like to live with contentment in your heart according to the sunnah, wallahi, you won't need to look anywhere else. Nowhere else. Ustad, I have this amount of time, right? Okay. See, I promise. See, on a lighter note, y'all know what y'all signed up for. Once I start talking, I can't. It's hard. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Time. Time is going by. I will conclude with a reflection from one of my teachers. In fact, Ajib, I saw him in a dream today. Ajib. I don't know why, but I saw him in a dream today. Just a few hours ago, Ajib. Time. See, we need to ask ourselves. This is not our first taqreeb regarding the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This past Ramadan was not the first Ramadan of our lives. You know, he asked us a very difficult question once. Because everything that I'm sharing is from my teachers and elders, like nothing from my end. How many years have we been praying salah? How many Ramadans have we been fasting? How many itikafs have we sat in our lives? How many udhiyas and qurbanis we have done literally with our own hands? How many loved ones have we buried with our own hands? How many of us have had a close to death experience in our lives already? How many times has Allah given us our life back? Literally every moment, every time we wake up in the morning, going back to the sunnah. one of the masnoon du'as we recite when we wake up in the morning, أحيانا بعدما أماتنا, which literally means who gave me life. All praise due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who gave me life. بعدما أماتنا, after I was given death. Naum is ukhtul maut. Sleep is the sister of death. We find in Islam, it is through Allah's permission that our souls are returned to our bodies every time we go to sleep and we wake up. Every opportunity is from Allah. The question is, time is going by. Let it not be that I came, attended, I had some amazing food, shout out to the kitchen crew, mashallah, right? May Allah reward all the volunteers that have been putting tireless hours in putting this event together. Everyone say Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. May Allah reward all of these volunteers, Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. But the point is not for us to just come, bayanat sune, maza aya, thoda jhume, khana kaya, bekar mara, Allah la khair. That's not the objective. The objective is وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. Wallahi, time is going by. Every grain of this fine sand that has gone through this passage of time is not going to go back. We don't know how much time we have left. When are we going to bring the sunnah in our lives? There's no tomorrow. One of my teachers, Muhammad Sulaiman Mullah, would tell us, there's no tomorrow. There are many people that we have buried in Lodi, without respect, वो भी कल की तमन्ना करते रहे. असी कल नमाज पढ़सा, अगले साल रोजे रखसा, हम बयान नमाज पढ़ेगा, हम बीफ के मस्जिद को जाए, या أنا أصلي, بكرة إن شاء الله. Whatever language you speak. Please, brothers and sisters, let us not leave this gathering without making an azm. Time is going by. Wallahi, time is going by. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq for amal. Anything, if was of any benefit, was from Allah Azza wa Jalla. And on a lighter note, anything that was out of pocket, was out of pocket. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanallah wa bihamdihi, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Forgive me for going over time. Jazakumullahu khairan. May Allah accept from us.
Jazakallah khairan.